This is the Defenders podcast on TV Podcast Industries. We're back talking about WandaVision episode 4. We interrupt this program.
Darling, where's my mom?
Your mom? She died, honey.
What? No, you're mistaken. My mother, the procedure went well. You said so yourself. Clean margins, you're discharging her today.
The cancer came back.
Okay, stop. No, my mom is Maria Rambeau. Look it up. Look it up, Maria Rambeau.
I don't understand what's happening, but you need to listen to me. Maria died 3 years ago.
No.
Which was 2 years after you...
After I what?
After you disappeared.
Welcome back, fellow Defenders, to TV Podcast Industries. We're back talking about WandaVision. Yeah, episode 4, we interrupt this program. I'm one of your hosts, Derek.
Hello there, fellow Defenders. I am one of your other hosts, John.
And rounding out this trio, I am Chris.
Everybody back in their usual positions this time. Chris ready to get the group. John in the middle. Me up front.
Yep. And I am Groot.
Nice, Chris. Well, welcome back, fellow Defenders. Once again, as always happens with our podcasts on TV shows, we come up with an interesting way of talking about our episodes. We have been talking about the last couple of weeks, our major points about the TV show they're referencing, our commercial breakdown, and then the reveals of some of the mysteries, or the stories of some of the mysteries. Complete change up on the episode here. So a complete change up on the podcast because, no commercial this week. Complete change of format. We're out in the real world, not in the world of the TV show. So we'll be talking about our top 5 points about this episode this time.
Whoop whoop.
Yes, we are mixing it up, fellow Defenders, with our coverage of WandaVision. Just like how the show has suddenly taken a significant left turn in the series so far. If you are joining us for the first time, we will be spoilering everything out of episode 4. We interrupt this program. And of course, if you're new as well, please head on over to our website, tvpodcastindustries.com, where you can subscribe on any Wiccan or Android-loving podcast player. You can support us any way you want to, but subscribe, rate us, leave a review, or as well to keep the lights on, keep Derek jacked up on coffee, keep Chris looking beautiful, then please, you can head on over and support us over on our Patreon at patreon.com/TV Podcast Industries. Any which way you choose to support us is absolutely fantastic and really, really appreciated. We are continuing with our pub quiz. We are continuing with our feedback extravaganza on all things WandaVision. Send in your emails with feedback to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com, or over on our Facebook group, you can post in our spoiler-filled comment post over on facebook.com/groups/TV Podcast Industries. So yes, welcome everyone, and let's get down to business. Derek, what are some of the episode details?
Well, the episode was written by Bobak, Esfarjani, and McDonald. We spoke about McDonald because she wrote one of the episodes earlier on this season. Bobak, what I thought was interesting in looking back on the shows that he's written for, he wrote for a show called Manifest, which was out a couple of years ago. What was interesting about that show is that it was about a plane that disappeared and returned after 5 years. Pretty useful for this episode of WandaVision, which is about a character who has disappeared from the world and returned after 5 years. I just thought it was quite a surprise that the actual time frame as well was exactly the same as that. So did they go, "Hey Bobak, you've written this story of what the world would be like if everybody disappeared for 5 years. Can you come in and do that for WandaVision as well?" I like that. The episode once again directed by Matt Shakman. So far directed every episode of the show. John, do you want to tell us what they gave us with this astonishingly interesting episode of WandaVision?
Sure. 5 years after the devastating events of Thanos' snap, agent of S.W.O.R.D. Monica Rambeau returns with everyone else who disappeared in the blip. The world is different, including S.W.O.R.D. that is now focused on sentient weapons. As she's grounded, Monica gets a new mission investigating a missing person from the town of Westview with FBI Special Agent Jimmy Woo. But a missing person case soon becomes a missing town case. When Monica investigates her drone that disappears through a strange energy field, she is sucked inside the invisible border of Westview. S.W.O.R.D. call in the experts, including Dr. Darcy Lewis, an astrophysicist who has dealt with strange disappearances before. Darcy soon realizes that she can access a broadcast of Westview and learns that Wanda Maximoff and the Vision are the stars of the sitcom show. They have surrounded themselves with missing townspeople who play more roles. While S.W.O.R.D. attempts to infiltrate the town, Monica mistakenly reveals that she's a stranger and is expelled from Westview, where Wanda has everything under control.
Or does she? do.
I was going to just title this episode as Everything is Revealed, because I do love the title that Disney Plus gave for the episode. We've talked about the episode titles coming up after their release, but I love this title, this We Interrupt This Program. Something that you'd hear when there's breaking news, effectively, back in the day on regular TV shows. So here we have We Interrupt Your Regularly Scheduled sitcom starring two Avengers with here's all of the story that's happening in the outside world.
Yes, this is the Flasher episode, I guess, where a lot is revealed to the audience.
Is exposed. I like it, John. I like it.
Did not know where you were going with that one. All right.
So let's get into our top 5 points, guys. Point number 1, really, let's talk about Monica Rambeau. Anybody who did listen to our kind of spoiler section last week, we didn't want to talk about this character's name because it had been revealed in press stuff. It had been revealed in interviews with the actress who plays the character of Geraldine in the first 3 episodes. But because they hadn't revealed it on the show, we didn't want to spoil the reveal for anybody.
Well, even being involved in that, I'm like, what? Geraldine's actually Monica Rambeau? What?
You knew this, John.
Did.
Don't lie to the fellow
I'm just being
defenders.
silly.
But we have this great opening to the episode, something we've not seen in the MCU before, a character returning from after this snap that happened in Avengers Infinity War, where Thanos snapped away half of the universe. And then they all return during Avengers Endgame. We haven't actually seen anybody return in this way before. We had Spider-Man Far From Home, where they had the aftermath of everybody returning. But I think in the scenes we saw in that movie, what we saw was very quickly people just returning, but not in this way, where we have them reforming like they were coming back from the dust. What do you guys think of this way of showing Monica Rambeau's return to the world?
I loved it. Absolutely loved it. It was just it was the reversing of the snapping.
Yes, I've got the unblipping or the undusting.
The undusting, I like that. It's kind of like, it was great. Like the audio and visual aspects of her coming back were fantastic. Like you hear Carol Danvers' voice from when she was a kid from the original Captain Marvel movie, as she's kind of forming back, calling her like Lieutenant Trouble, and just kind of reigniting. Okay, yeah, no, she's Monica Rambeau. Like, in case you missed it, here she is. And I was like, they probably could have done a couple of flashbacks, and it would have been even quicker. But no, it was great. It was,
yeah.
And then just the confusion in this whole area. Like within a very quick scene, we get the mum's dead. Like, it's been the 5 years. She's been in hospital. It was a quickening. You see other people just rushing in. Like, it was just that. It was very well told. In my opinion.
Yeah. It was really cool. I must say, I loved it. I was kind of half expecting someone to unblip inside someone else, and it sort of turn into the Thing or something like that. That we had this kind of sort of weird sort of merging of people. I thought that would have been really interesting, but I guess that's not the Marvel thing to do. That may be a little too horror.
Well, I do remember that kind of discussion that was going on in Endgame where they were talking about that. They had, half the world has disappeared. What if you're walking down the street and somebody, appears where they were 5 years ago? Of course, you're going to merge with them. But I think Feige at the time had this little explanation that when the choice was made to unblip people, to unsnap them, that of course they were going to say everybody comes back safely, is what they're actually wishing for, let's say, when they're doing their snap for using all of these powers. They're going to make that decision. They're not going to put people in a plane that was in the air, effectively, and then suddenly they drop to the ground. They're going to put them in a safe position. So like you saw, when one person appears in a chair in the room beside a bed, well, what if somebody had been sitting in that chair looking over the person that was in the bed? They would merge, yes. So I kind of like that they do show that there is confusion. Monica walks into somebody that appears just right in front of her, which is a cool scene. It works really well.
Yeah.
But, yes, it is the Marvel Universe. You're probably not going to have Thing-style monsters being created from this.
Well, I was thinking more people who have taken the hospital bed and maybe are flat out and can't move. Mm-hmm. And the next thing is kind of these particles form over them, and they're kind of like, you hear the heart monitor going faster and faster and faster.
Beep,
and then
beep,
it's
beep, beep.
exactly.
Oh no!
But maybe they just do a pylon or something because they just fall on top of them.
I think they'd probably put them on slightly a different part of the room or something like that.
Maybe.
Would be the way they do it, as my guess. But again, this is that the writers of Endgame said, and Feige kind of confirmed that they weren't going to go down the road of that kind of body horror in the Marvel Universe. Let's talk a bit more about Monica herself. Chris, do you want to talk about where she is, who she was? Now we know a bit more of adult Monica here.
Okay, so very quickly, the character herself is Monica Rambeau. We last saw her in the MCU as a child in Captain Marvel with her mother, who was the co-pilot or the wingman for Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers.
Yes.
It turns out that everything continued on. She became Lieutenant Trouble. She followed her mother into the service as Monica Rambeau. Her mother formed S.W.O.R.D,
yes,
which in this universe is the Sentient Weapon Observation and Response Department, which is slightly different from the comic books, which is the Sentient World Observation and Response Department.
Yeah.
But anyway, they were originally formed based on what we're hearing to monitor the things in the sky, the things in space that go bump in the night, the good, the bad, but are now focused on AI and other types of issues.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The problems on Earth, because obviously that's where all the problems are. We can make assumptions based on the film of Captain Marvel that S.W.O.R.D was set up because Monica's mother was aware of the Kree and the Skrulls and the things that took part in the 90s. She was in space at the end of Captain Marvel, the film. So there is going to be some assumptions that that's kind of why S.W.O.R.D was there. It was there as that kind of, we make the joke and we're not going to use it anymore, the shield of space. They were the kind of response department for what happened in space.
Yes.
For extraterrestrial kind of potential. They were observing what's going on the world and beyond. Beyond.
It's funny you say that because, S.W.O.R.D, aka Shield in space, but I guess because they've had their wings clipped, they're more terrestrial bound because no one's applying for the space program because of the blip, and so it's more just on robotics. And I kind of was thinking, well, they're kind of not really in space, so aka they're really just the new Shield. And maybe that Dr. Tyler Hayward is the Nick Fury in space, and hence he's now just the new Nick Fury.
Yeah, not really.
What do you think about that, Derek?
Nick Fury's still out there. I will concede there is a wonderful connection between S.W.O.R.D and S.W.O.R.D in this universe, though.
Yay.
I love this. Peggy Carter set up S.W.O.R.D. She was the original person who set up S.W.O.R.D, and now we have Maria Rambeau being the one that set up S.W.O.R.D. So two wonderful female characters in this universe, real strong characters in this universe that set up these two different organizations, completely different organizations focused on completely different things. One thing that Monica says to the acting director, which I thought was quite interesting. When he gives her the new acronym for S.W.O.R.D, she says, there's no creation involved anymore. So they're not focusing on creating weapons. They're now focusing on monitoring and assessing threats effectively. And that's understandable given what's happened with the extraterrestrial threat that was Thanos in the movies and the forces that attacked Earth. This is now an organization that used to go out and explore the universe, kind of Star Trek-like, I suppose. And now they're focused on looking at threats from aliens, coming to Earth and what they can do to form some kind of defense and response, I suppose. So I just thought it was interesting that it's a complete change over the previous 5 years from what happened, it was like before Monica disappeared.
And it kind of relates back to Iron Man's about this shield around the planet. But in this case, they're kind of a monitoring station for that protection. I used to be in S.W.O.R.D as well.
You used to live in Swords, John.
Yes, I did.
Yeah. So it's a place in Dublin in Ireland. It's not an organisation, though.
No, exactly.
It could.
Well, I like to think it is now.
Yeah.
I'll very quickly just jump in and kind of finish off about Monica before we get to Westview, which is what I do like is the fact that they used her as part of the snap helps explain the age, which is fantastic.
Yep.
Because basically they can take away those 5 years. And that's something I just did not think about going forward for a lot of the MCU, which is that's how they can explain maybe why one character's older and one character's younger and blah, 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 which is, this person disappeared for 5 years.
Yeah.
And they came back. So 5 years just never happened for them. So in Captain Marvel, which was set in the 90s, she was 6, 7, 8, 9. She was like
somewhere around there.
Somewhere around there. I'm not good at telling the age of children until I cut off one of their arms and count the rings.
Okay, don't do that, Chris.
Oh, is that not how you do it?
Not everyone's Groot.
No, you usually just ask and see
That's
what they say.
That's probably why I'm not allowed to go to children's farms anymore.
Yeah. Most people are, I am not Groot.
Right, okay. Yeah. But it was a very interesting way of doing it. But she's grounded. Which is because they just basically need to observe better the people who have come back to make sure there's no PTSD or anything like that. So she's grounded. She's given a task to a missing persons report to work with the FBI. So we do see her very shortly then arrive in Westview, or where Westview should be, and we meet the one and only Jimmy Woo.
Jimmy Woo, another returning character from the MCU, and we will move on to our point number 2, really, because I want to talk about Jimmy Woo and the other characters that are in here from other movies. This episode of the show does ask you to know and remember lots of characters from the MCU. I was going through how many movies are kind of referenced from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's basically 6 different MCU movies, some of them bigger than, and some of them that landed bigger, and some of them that some people haven't seen, so you've got to have known what happened in Avengers Infinity War, Endgame, Captain Marvel, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Thor, and Thor the Dark World to know what's going on with all these characters. But really cool. We'll go on to, as I say, point number 2 about Jimmy Woo and Darcy being included in this world. Monica coming up and meeting Jimmy Woo, a character that was in the FBI, was following and monitoring Ant-Man in being under lockdown in his house back in Ant-Man and the Wasp. And I love the little touches that they have to reference who he was back at Ant-Man and the Wasp. That little flourish where he shows his business card to Monica Rambeau, and he's using the sleight of hand that he learned from Scott Lang in Ant-Man and the Wasp. It was a running joke that while under lockdown, Scott Lang had learnt all this magic, and that Jimmy Woo wanted to learn it from him. So little touches there. There's a touch about the fact that he's not very good with children, even though he does want some, which is a running joke that he had in that movie as well. So great to have this character back in the show. And I must say, that moment with Monica and himself standing looking on Westview and trying to figure out what's going on, it really felt a bit X-Files. It felt like X-Files in the MCU.
I definitely got that vibe. I thought this had a really nice X-Files vibe to the whole episode. And I think just, I really liked, for sure, just with the drone, at least, the toy, or what we thought was the toy helicopter, in episode 2, is a S.W.O.R.D drone.
Yeah.
That was pretty good. And I loved the effect of Monica walking up to that energy field and it just being only barely visible. I guess that explains the floodlighting from the last episode to really sort of make it pop, shall we say? And
as Chris said last episode,
yeah, and so this was really, really good. And of course, she gets sucked in, and hence this whole investigation then with S.W.O.R.D, but also with FBI, with Army, with Navy, with Air Force, a whole range of different agencies at this site. And I think for me, I loved the interaction of Jimmy Woo and Darcy in this. I love Darcy anyway. I loved her from Thor, but I just love her little deductions from the conversations that she has, you know, like with the chemical engineer. So you're a Boy Scout leader, and you know, it's classified, so you know nothing. It's just, she's really got really nice sense of just picking out the empty space in the conversation. I really, really love that. And then as her and Agent Wu are together, it just, watching the sitcom is, you know, really good. She's just there going, I'm invested now, you know, as the babies come and all this kind of stuff. Really, really good. It was a nice little touch, I thought, between these two characters.
Darcy for me has always been one of the even more than Jimmy Woo is the supporting character that I've always fallen in love with. Kat Dennings brings the character to life when the army sergeant comes up and goes, Miss Lewis. Dr. Lewis. Just that, and that was one of the best moments for me.
Yeah. But isn't that also a call out to the fact that she has now got her doctorate? Because back in Thor the Dark World, Jane Foster was the doctor and she was the intern. Sorry, she was the helper, was working alongside her. And there was an intern that worked alongside Darcy, but I don't think she'd actually achieved her doctorate. So this is saying in the last, whatever it is, 7 or 8 years since, maybe even 10 years since Thor the Dark World, she's gone on to pursue this doctorate in astrophysics.
She was a postgrad.
Cool. It's a postgrad, exactly.
Yeah, that was it, yes, actually, sorry.
Yeah,
well, there's the other thing as well where, you know, she's watching the sitcom and she makes the observation that Wanda is going into the kitchen every episode, washing the dishes, and she just goes barf. Like, oh my goodness. Like she's invested in the sitcom, but she's seeing all the stereotypes that, you know, or the expectation on the ladies of the house, I guess, at that time. So,
but that's an interesting reference in itself, though, because we've only seen one episode set in the 50s with that style of household, and then one episode set in the 60s, and then the episode in the 70s. And what Darcy seems to be calling out is that there are multiple episodes, so that she's seen more than one episode of this version of the sitcom. So it's not just the 3 episodes that we've seen in the last 3 episodes of WandaVision. There may be more that they've seen of the interaction between these characters. I think we'll talk about it a little bit in a second, but I think we see a couple of those moments in scenes that we haven't seen in the episodes that were broadcast, let's say.
And there's the great line, you know, the universe has created a sitcom with 2 Avengers. And we also see, you know, another kind of just little explanation is it is Dr. Darcy, who is the lady in episode 1 that's making the notes on the sitcom. So I liked all these little reveals. It was nice.
Yeah. And also, of course, it's Jimmy Woo that makes the call to Darcy. We can have that confirmed because we see exactly what happens in there. And he's not as informed as we probably thought when we were trying to work out what that call meant in episode 2 of WandaVision. He's not as informed as we thought. We thought he had more information. What he was actually calling in to go is, what's going on? And that's kind of all the call was. Hey, Wanda, could you tell me what's going on? Because I don't really know what's going on here. Who's doing this to you? Not because he knew anything. It's because he had no idea at the time what was happening.
Yes. I think, look, we'll kind of start to move forward, but I think one of the key aspects of this is that it's all coming together. And it's like, it's perfect. It's that we were answering 100 questions for you, but you know what? We're going to give you 500 more. And it's just kind of, we're starting to see all these little bit threads kind of be pulled, but at the same time be answered. Like the helicopter.
Yeah.
We now know that was the drone. We also do know that in the MCU, if you come up to an invisible barrier made of energy, you do not put your hand in it and touch it and kind of push it forward. Like, no, that's not what you do.
Yeah. I kind of like that actually plays out in this episode as well, Chris, because it's Monica that goes up, puts her hand in and disappears. Nobody else does that in the entire episode. So they're like, we've learned our lesson now. Nobody else go up and touch that barrier. Let's put a fence around it. Nobody goes in unless we tell them to, like the mission that's sent in by S.W.O.R.D. So, yeah.
Very quickly. Did the 2 cops vanish?
No, they just drove away.
I know, but we didn't see the car do a U-turn because the car was facing the energy barrier, right? It was facing, so the in front of the sign, it's the car. There are 2 cars parked. Yeah. It was parked facing the sign, which was facing like behind or in front of the energy barrier.
Right.
So we didn't see them do a turnabout. We didn't see them do a 3-point turn. Like
it'll be a deleted scene, Chris.
I'm hoping so because what I was really wondering is that they were like, oh no, we just lost 2 people. Ooh.
No, I think they got out of there safely.
Yeah. I do love that reaction from Monica when she's looking at the sign for Westview and going, so where's Westview? And they go, no, that town doesn't exist. And she's like, Westview, New Jersey, looking at the sign, and these 2 cops are going, no, that doesn't exist. We're from
But where are you
Eastview.
From? Yeah.
But
you gotta remember North and Southview are around there, just around there too.
It probably.
Yeah. But I love as well then and I guess moving on to point 3, that the whole investigation is coming from Darcy finding these broadcast frequency radio waves and this universe sitcom that has just been created, and it all becomes about trying to identify the people stuck in Westview. That, it went from a missing person, someone in witness protection, to a missing town, and a whole rake of people who were being kept within this town, assuming they're being held against their will. And I guess that connects to what we saw with Herb in the last episode, where he's trying to articulate the situation that they find themselves in. But it's a really great little montage as they go through identifying the different people stuck in Westview, like the Hearts and Herb. And all of that, but starting to do it almost like a cast call in a production.
Was anybody getting like
really
Saturday Night Live vibes, where it's like, and the Hearts played by Todd and Sharon Davis? It's like, everybody getting called out. Ablash Tandon plays Norm, and they start to even say it. They're starting to say as and plays when they're putting the people up on the board. I suppose there's some interesting things, and we'll definitely talk about these. But one of the things I definitely caught was every single person that's been identified has I think it's a license or at least their identification from New Jersey. So everybody that's there probably is from Westview. It's from the town. Everybody that's been identified is up there. The other thing that I think needs to be called out is that Jimmy Woo is trying to find the person that was supposed to be in the witness protection program, identified as male in the conversation between himself and Monica when she arrives. And he never calls out again that he's found that person. So we don't know what's happened to the person that was in Westview that Jimmy Woo was supposed to be trying to find, I suppose.
Yes.
Well, and he says he has, they've contacted all that person's associates and relatives, and they don't remember him.
Yeah.
Like, so again, there's the whole selective amnesia that's mentioned at the start by Monica with the 2 sheriffs. And then it seems like this is also happening to the associates and relatives of this witness protection person. So again, that's really interesting. Who is the person in witness protection? It's at least identified as a man.
Definitely.
By Jimmy Woo.
Yeah.
But possibly if they're in Westview and the manipulation that Wanda is doing, they could be formed as someone else, as a different person, different gender, different race, who knows? Yeah. So that's kind of interesting. And as well, the other thing is that just following on from the ID, The only person that I saw that didn't have an ID was Agnes. There is a picture of Agnes, but with no ID.
Yes, from the first episode, I think. And then they do mention Dottie appearing in the second episode as a new character. I think Darcy references, hang on a second, there's somebody brand new here in the show. So those two characters, Agnes and Dottie, there's no information about who they are. They've been looking for everybody in the show here. Everybody else seems to have been identified that we've seen, but those two haven't.
Personally, I think the person in the witness protection may be introduced as a later episode, because we did know back in those days, the 60s, the 50s, 60s, 70s, sitcoms casts were typically quite small.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then as you got into the 80s and 90s and the early noughties, they did expand out. So potentially we will see this male character. Like, when he said witness protection, I was like, Scott Lang. Like, I was like, oh my God, this would be great. Because Scott Lang was in under custody in the second one. So I was like, oh, this is going to be cool. Or it was going to be one of the other characters from the Ant-Man universe.
Right.
I was like, it's going to be one of his gang.
Right. The former criminals that set up the security business. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So I was hoping potentially it's going to be one of those, and it would be a nice kind of pop up later, kind of like, hey, they moved them from San Francisco to Jersey because like they're in witness protection now. I think that would be a good thing. I think the rationale as to why Agnes and Dottie are not on there will be explained. Yeah. Yes. And I think it's going to be explained because they are bigger and deeper characters than what we expect.
Yes, we've already seen the two of them have major interactions with Wanda. Both of them in the first episode and second episode have major interactions with Wanda. So there's definitely something different about those two versus everybody else. And
Agnes is very clued in with the situation around Geraldine, as she was before this episode, and also in terms of directing and trying to influence Herb in terms of like stop talking. So like she's got a really important role here.
Yeah. I think one of the core parts about Dottie, which we weren't sure of, which is that Agnes does say Dottie runs everything around her. Mm-hmm. She's in control. So I think that's where we will find that Dottie is a larger player and it wasn't just something. But we'll see. That's kind of, it's the investigation. It's the fun part of it.
I think as well, the interesting thing about Dottie, and just moving us on to point 4, the missing footage, is that scene in episode 2 where Dottie has cut her hand and it's red blood. And as Darcy is watching that, you see a jump, which you didn't see during episode 2. So from us as an audience watching that at the time, we don't see that jump in the same way that Darcy spots for the first time, realizing that there's some issue with that broadcast, that it's being reset or modified by, I guess, at the moment, Wanda. So I thought that was really good. And we have then a few more points of missing footage that we see then coming through as Darcy and Agent Wu are watching the sitcom. Yeah. And I think the big one is that alternate interaction between Wanda and Monica that we got at the end of episode 3, where it's just the blank space within the sitcom. And we don't see it in episode 3, but where we see Wanda's powers as we know them from the MCU.
Absolutely.
The red energy around her hands, you're not my neighbor, you're not my friend, you're a stranger, I want you to leave. And I thought that was really, really cool, just the way she flies through and out. And I guess this is one of the things. She
flies through the multiple walls, taking every bit of it with her, and then Wanda structuring everything and putting it all back together again, exactly like the powers that we've seen from Wanda in the movies before. So I think we had this kind of theory last week that she's in this world and she's using magical powers that are similar to the TV shows that she's referencing, and also similar to the stones. So similar to the powers, like the changing of time, that kind of stuff. Here in this scene, it really does feel like these are Wanda's powers, the ones that we've seen outside of this this TV universe, I suppose. So I thought that was quite interesting that she's not using any different powers than we've seen her use before when she's come back to herself, when she kind of realized that Monica can't possibly be a person from this world.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the interesting part.
Yeah. Again, it's just an assumption, but it's the fact that when Monica passes through that energy field, I'm assuming a bit like with Agent Franklin in the hazmat suit, that as she passed through, she got her new getup that fitted the world that is being generated in Westview. So we see she's in her clothes, but as she comes out, it's not reversed as such. She's still lying on the ground with her fish, her fish print trousers.
Yep.
And she's still in that kind of character.
Yeah.
And
remember also Monica's had 3 different outfits that we've seen her wear in the show as well. So it's not just passing through the barrier that gave her new clothes. Episode 2, she had the outfit that she's wearing at the swimming pool. We see Darcy look at a scene where she's sitting on a bench in episode 1, which we didn't see before, but she's wearing a different outfit. And then episode 3, she's in her 70s gear with the brand new haircut. So it's not just walking through the barrier. She's getting this change of clothes every day as the whole program changes to 50s, 60s, 70s as well. But you're right, as she comes back out through the barrier, she keeps those clothes. So she doesn't go back to the outfit that she was wearing before she jumped back in. She's lost her S.W.O.R.D outfit.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. I wonder
Which sounds so cool. I want a S.W.O.R.D outfit.
I wonder will HR get onto her about that.
Oh, yeah, no, she'll have to pay the deductible. Like, it'll be deducted slowly from her next paycheck, and,
Probably.
Yeah. I think the other big thing here is we see the real Vision.
Yes, we do.
The Vision that is dead is in black and white and with the Mind Stone removed from his forehead, plucked by Thanos, which I always thought is a great scene, just the way his kind of cigar fingers go in and pluck it out from his head. So yeah, that is the other really interesting aspect here, that Wanda sees the real Vision in that way, and immediately covers it up. So that is also very interesting.
It's massive
moving forward.
It's massive because Darcy even says from the beginning of this episode when she arrives, like, hang on a second, he's actual dead. He's not snapped away or anything like that.
Yeah.
And everybody else knows this, that he's gone, he's dead, and Wanda sees it for a split second in here.
Yeah. So I'm going to quickly jump in on this. So there is a rumor within us nerds who liked to deep dive in a lot of this, that Endgame had a deleted scene at the end that basically showed Wanda taking Vision's body with her. So rumor, we don't know if it's true or not. It's just apparently some people have said they saw this scene.
I don't even think that's a rumor. I think Paul Bettany said that was filmed and just wasn't in the movie.
Okay, so there you go. Perfect. Now maybe we know why it wasn't used in the film. Maybe for time, but additionally, they filmed it. We may see this later, because what we may see is Wanda taking the body and going to Westview.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, with this, to have her funeral, to have her moment or cathartic whatever. It's like the psychiatric session that she needs with this alone body time. And that's basically, it is Vision. There you go. It's a WandaVision. Vision, this actually is his body being reanimated.
I think almost a reference to Ultron here from me, but I think it's not. I think it's almost like she's puppeteering the dead body of Vision, in a way. It's like,
it's difficult to know, isn't it? It's kind of because in that moment where she's, I guess has let her guard down, and she looks up and sees dead Vision, and does her hand, and he comes back with, without in his color and alive. Then it's a sense that is she controlling him in that way. I think the other interesting thing is, Vision we said at the end of episode 3, it seemed like he was becoming sentient.
Yes.
And that, you know, he recognizes something weird has gone on. And he says to Wanda, we can go wherever we want to. And she is quite clear, no, we can't.
Yeah.
And so two things on that. Is it because Wanda, this is where she wants to do it in terms of her reality? Or is it that, you know, that suggests she understands that maybe there's something holding her here, that it is something additional here, to just simply Wanda being in control, that we hear from, Monica when she lands after being chucked through the energy field, that she goes, it's all Wanda. But is it, given that Wanda seems to be of the mind that this is where we're staying? And is it because she's just, you know, pretty stubborn and hard-headed and we're not going to move? Or is it because she herself is maybe trapped? Again, you know, there's potential questions around Agnes, what her role is, what she might be doing. So I think there's some really interesting stuff that's going to come out moving forward.
I just wonder, like, you have those two questions. I think the third question is it just she can't leave here or Vision dies? Like, that's the trap.
Yeah.
That Vision is held in here. He's alive for her in this environment, which is replicating some fun times that she had maybe watching American sitcoms when she was in Sokovia. You know, is that what she's doing in here so that she can have this perfect life with Vision, and things are starting to creep in and ruin that perfect life? I use in inverted commas there.
But even with Vision, because once she's put him back to the way she wants to see him, you see an unsettled, uneasy Vision as they sit back down on the sofa to watch TV with the newborn babies.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, his eyes are flitting all over the place. As he turns to Wanda, he's all smiles. And again, turns back away. It's all kind of uneasiness being projected on Vision's face.
Yeah.
So,
and we saw that even back in episode 1, that scene where it pulls back out to see Darcy monitoring them now. We know that. That scene where the two of them are staring at the camera, they both look really uneasy. And then they kind of turn on the smiles for the camera as it pans out and closes that episode, I suppose. So there's definitely something different about Vision. You're right. There is something else there.
I'm going to be really crazy here, but is Vision the person in witness protection?
Maybe.
Like, I don't know. I have not really any basis for saying that other than we know it's a man.
Yeah.
From Jimmy Woo. We're saying that possibly it could be someone else, and that's why they haven't really found him yet. And I guess, you know, they know that Vision and Wanda are there, so Jimmy hasn't said anything.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe it's just hiding in plain sight.
Yeah.
Or there's someone, as you say, that we've just not been introduced to yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that is one of the many questions we don't have an answer to.
Exactly.
So I think let's move that on to our final point of this, which is, what do we know and what do we not know? So I'm trying to say, boys, really is, what do we know and what do we not know about what we know and what we don't know?
Well, there was loads of answers given in here. Definitely really liked that overall. I really wanted to get a glimpse of the board that Jimmy Woo has up, and all the questions he had on there. The only two things I picked out from the whiteboard that weren't called out in the episode, he had the same question that you had, Chris. What is it about all the hexagonals in this universe? What's going on? It's an interesting question because we kind of noticed it a little bit from the credits and that kind of thing, but no particular thing so far to explain what that is. But what I did like, the question that he had was, is this all Skrulls? Which I thought was really good. That's a reference to Captain Marvel because, remember, this agency was set up by Maria Rambeau, who had encountered Skrulls taking on the forms of other people around her. So, of course, that would be one of the things she would always monitor for. Could it be Skrulls? That would be kind of the basis of every analysis that's done by S.W.O.R.D. I know, obviously Jimmy Woo is a member of the FBI, but he's working with S.W.O.R.D. here in this environment. But I just thought that was like, make sure that's a question we ask from now on. Could this be Skrulls?
That is true.
The one final thing that we did find out that we didn't know before, which was the actual force field, the energy field, is a hexagonal.
Yeah.
It's a hexagon as well, around the town.
Yeah. And of course, like, silly old John did try to see if there was anything, explore this. And I guess there's loads of theories on the hexagonal, from yeah, as you say, Chris, the form of this energy field is in hexagonal. We have the hexagons at the start of the sitcom. There is the whole reference to Agent Franklin going through and becoming a beekeeper with the hexagonal structures of bees.
Right.
But yeah, there's quite a lot of different theories. I mean, we mentioned about AIM in episode 2 when we see the beekeeper coming out of the sewer.
Yeah. But it turns out he's S.W.O.R.D.
But he's S.W.O.R.D. Another one was a loose reference to the fact that Wanda's hex powers. And so there's a manifestation of the powers.
See, that to me sounds like someone searched a dictionary and gone hexagonal.
Well,
that's
exactly.
not what power she has.
Exactly.
Hex powers are to do with a witch.
Exactly.
Hexagonal powers would be something that turns things into a certain shape.
And I guess the other one, which possibly ties in, and again, I don't really have any basis for this, so this is pure wishful thinking.
I'm not sure about this one, John.
No, I'm not either. But there's references to hexagonals and so on to then Mephisto, which is a big bad of Doctor Strange, and we know this is connected in there. And with House of M, the twins have a part or a fragment, it's very Voldemort, of the soul of Mephisto.
Okay. This is Marvel Comics version of the devil is Mephisto. He's been used in so many stories over the last 10 years. I would be really surprised if Mephisto didn't appear in the MCU at some point, but I'm not sure we have enough information in the first 4 episodes to say that this is going to be anything other than some regular villain manipulating Wanda, or Wanda just trying to protect this perfect life that she has. I do feel some of these things when I see the ideas that people have on the internet of what could possibly come up. I think people are throwing everything at the wall and then trying to make it fit, especially these hexagonals. What could they mean? Oh, Mephisto apparently was drawn in a hexagonal once.
Well, I know. Well, it was some weird thing. But I, as I say, I'm certainly not convinced by that. And even if it were to pan out that way, it's not going to be Mephisto in this, I don't think. That would be held to one of the movies. So it could be an agent of. So, like, for me as well, I'm trying to see those connections with the Multiverse of Madness, Doctor Strange film 2. And within that realm, shall we say, Nightmare has been, flagged as one of the potential, antagonists to Doctor Strange, who, yes. Nightmare rides on a horse, is the master of the dream realm, and causes nightmares for people, effectively locks them away in their own dreams.
Or nightmares.
Or nightmares, exactly. Yeah. And so possibly, this could be what Wanda is experiencing. But I think the big thing is still, given what Wanda said at the end with, like, we can't go wherever we want to in response to Vision. Is she controlling this, or is she herself being controlled? I guess that's something that I still need to see.
Yeah, exactly.
More WandaVision on.
Exactly. Yeah. We've got 5 more episodes to go of the series. I wonder if it's just that monkey paw effect, as we talked about before. She made a wish to bring Vision back. Vision's back, and now she's trapped here, or else Vision is gone again. Is it something like that? Just wanted to call out in this section of the things we don't know. What happened to the beekeeper? He arrived. Wanda said no. Do we know whether he was pushed back out into the world? Do we know whether he just disappeared and is never seen again?
Yeah.
I just thought it was interesting that we didn't see what happened to him. This episode really did focus on all the things that we had kind of seen bits of and had theories about. And here's the answer. Beekeeper arrives, and then we never see him again or never hear from him again.
So we do know there was about 1,000 something people in this town. So, based on the board.
3,892.
That was going to be John's question for this week's pub quiz.
That's it anyway.
There you go. Luckily,
I'm
going to pull that. Not anymore. But yeah, so we do know there was a lot of people in this town. So, that being said, I think it's now, they're all background actors. Right. Like, they're not even supporting characters, they're just background actors.
I think as the episodes of sitcoms start to expand into the 70s and 80s and 90s and on, you're right, Chris. I think the amount of background actors that are needed to make it look realistic as these shows go from a format where they're filmed in front of a live studio audience on one set to things like Friends, which went outdoors a lot and had, crowds of people sometimes in those episodes. You probably need background actors to fill up those. So that's a good way out that they have. There's 3,900 people that can fill up these kind of shows in the future. Definitely. Anything else you want to call out about the episode before we move on to defense and feedback?
Yeah, the one thing I would love to know, I guess I could only check for the end of episode 3 is, at the end of episode 3, was the Westview sign, was it just 3,890 people? And now we've got the twins, it's added 2 onto it.
Maybe.
Does that kind of rock on up, is that part of the illusion? I don't know.
Maybe.
That would be a good one, though.
Interesting idea.
I'd probably not. I just thought maybe the 2 is it's kind of like, how many days has Westview gone without incident? 0.
Yeah. The only other thing I wanted to call out was just some of the lines from the episode. I have to say, this is probably my favorite comedy lines. Remember, the first 3 episodes were supposed to be sitcoms from the 50s, 60s, 70s. Yeah? This episode, while it's not set in TV sitcom land, we do have lots of sitcom banter that's going on, particularly with Darcy and with Jimmy Woo. I love that moment when Jimmy's asked, what about you, from Monica? And he goes, oh, well, some kids grew up with posters of famous singers and actors on the wall. I grew up with the poster of Elliot Ness, and he's completely misunderstood the question from Monica. She wanted to know why he can see Westview and nobody else can. That kind of stuff. The great line from Darcy where she's looking and investigating everything that's going on with the sitcom, and she's going, why did you change time periods? It can't just be for my enjoyment. And she's getting more and more invested in the show. So even though this isn't based in the 80s sitcom that we thought it was going to be last week, I genuinely think there are still sitcom elements of this episode with those comedy characters that are pulled out from the MCU.
Well, I love the bag of crisps gag and the babies, where we see them with the newborn babies, the twins, and she goes, do you want one? And Jimmy Woo goes into a big, long spiel about wanting little woos, which I thought was very cute.
Jimmy Woo Jr. with a little baby FBI badge.
Yeah, exactly. And she goes, no, do you want a crisp?
Yeah.
I liked.
It's good.
The writing on this is just amazing. It
really good.
The one thing I'll close on is, they've changed the aspect ratio again, so it looks like we're going back next episode to WandaVision, the episodes from an internal perspective, with maybe the aspect ratio changing in and out going forward. It would be great.
Yeah, I'm really hoping as we go into the rest of the show now that we've explored the outside world and kind of seen how the MCU is in, 2024 now in this universe, because it's 5 years on from Infinity War. It's roughly that, about 2023, 2024. But we've seen this world now. We've seen how the world exists post blip with the return of all the people. So I'm hoping that for the rest of this series now, we may see some bits of sitcom in the 80s, 90s and onwards, and we'll see the outside world of the investigation that's going on. I'm hoping that they'll use that as we go on, throughout the episodes. With that, all of our discussion points for the episode, all of our extra notes. Gentlemen, let's get on to our defense. Chris, do you defend WandaVision episode 4? We interrupt this program.
I'm back. I'm 100% back. This is exactly what I wanted on the show. This is the show I wanted. This is the MCU show I wanted. It's reinvested me 100% because now I have everything. I have more questions answered. It's well done. It's well produced. It is essentially an MCU film on TV. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
I still hold to the premise that technically I think for the premiere should have been episodes 1, 2, and 3, and this should have been the second week. Episode 4 should have been the second week. They should have dropped it like that, because then you've got the premise, the idea, the story, and then this. I think now people are more invested. As you end episode 4 going into episode 5, people have a lot of the answers. So that is my opinion. I think it's fantastic. And I'm excited to see where they go with this. Also, I just want one call out to Meow Meow. That is all I want. One call out to Meow Meow from Darcy.
See if Mjolnir's somewhere on Earth, just so Darcy could say that. Definitely, it's an interesting point, Chris, isn't it? Because the first ever MCU TV show that came on television was Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., show about my favorite characters. something like 14 million people tuned into that first episode. And by episode 2, there was only 8 million people. And then onwards, all of those people dropped off and missed out on one of the best Marvel television shows that was out there. 6 seasons of great characters, great stories, because they didn't want to stick past one episode of the show. I don't know whether here on Disney Plus, it's going to be available as the months go on. Some people are waiting it out and going to wait and watch all 9 episodes back to back. This is their structure. They're actually more likely trying to make sure that they have content every week for Marvel fans going into Falcon the Winter Soldier and Loki and all the other movies. So I think the timeline was simply, actually, we're going to put 2 episodes on day 1, because that matches up really well with the timeline for our release of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I don't think they were ever going to drop 5 episodes in a day or 4 episodes a day, but I'm glad you're enjoying them again. That's really good. But I do think it does speak, and this is kind of my defend, it really does speak to how Kevin Feige runs the Marvel cinematic universe, which now incorporates these TV shows. He knows exactly the point when he's going to drop that needle on the record and tell you what you need to know. He knows exactly when audiences are getting a bit shifty in their chairs in the cinema to give them some more big drop of information. And this is a great episode for that. It is that moment where you go, oh, okay, right now we're reset. We've got all the details we want. We had the mystery for a few episodes. Now we know what's going on. Now we know the investigation. And we can see everything.
I think, and not just Feige, but the showrunner. Exactly. I mean, at the end of the day, she had a creative choice to make as to whether you do it the sitcom 50s, 60s, 70s, all like that, or whether you intersperse that with scenes from outside of the thing. And she made a creative choice to do it that way. And I think it works because of the length of these episodes. At 30 minutes, those first 3 episodes are effectively, I guess, what we're so used to of hour-long programs, that's one episode and a bit, ultimately. And as a reviewer said, this is almost like the first act of WandaVision. And it is literally 2 episodes of what we're used to with hour-long shows. So I guess there was a creative choice to be made from the showrunner as much as Feige, and I think I can live with that, to be honest.
I guess I can guess the answer then, John. Do you defend this episode of WandaVision?
Oh, really do. Yeah, I give this 4.5 cockamamie social experiments out of 5.
Good old Jimmy Woo.
Yeah, I love this. I loved Dr. Darcy Lewis. Meow Meow. Here. I loved her interaction with Agent Woo. I just loved their pitter-patter all the way through this episode as they're investigating. Really good. I love that kind of missing footage, really interesting thing from Darcy is that, someone is censoring the broadcast, and it comes to the point of, is it Wanda? Is it something else that is still a mystery? Really good. I love the investigation with the board, with all the different characters like Mr. and Mrs. Hart, and Norm, and Beverly and Phil, the David Schwimmer lookalike, all coming in, but the mystery around Agnes and even Dottie. So this was really, just really, really cool. So I do defend episode 4 of WandaVision.
Excellent. Before we get into feedback, as usual, we have our pub quiz question for this week. Hope you're keeping track of these. If you haven't been keeping track, you can always go over to tvpodcastindustries.com/WandaVision pub quiz. You'll find all of the pub quiz questions so far. If you enter at the end of the series, you have the chance of getting your hands on some WandaVision Funko Pops. Yes. Courtesy of us. I'd love to say courtesy of our sponsors, Disney Plus or something, but no, out of our pockets.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah, so episode 4 question. Darcy detects colossal amounts of this acronym emanating from Westview. What is the 4-letter acronym and what does it stand for?
Yes, 2-part question. The acronym and what does it stand for?
So just to repeat that, Darcy detects colossal amounts of this acronym emanating from Westview. What is the 4-letter acronym and what does it stand for? Answers to feedback at tvpodcastindustries.com, please. And of course, yes, you will be in with a chance for the Funko Pops, the WandaVision Funko Pops. Absolutely. At the end of our coverage of WandaVision.
Yep. And cutoff we said for that was the 10th of March before we get into Falcon the Winter Soldier. Another way to get your hands on some different WandaVision Funko Pops is to send in your feedback to us. You can email us again with any feedback you have on any of the episodes to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com. If we read it out in the podcast, you'll go into the draw for some other WandaVision Funko Pops. Chris, do you want to kick us off with the first piece of feedback for this week?
Yes, this week we got some email, and the first email is from Maeve, who had this to say. Hey, TV Podcast Industries. Amazing podcast. I love how in-depth they are because most of the things go over my head. Some cool things that I noticed while watching was, one, the baby on the right of the crib in episode 3 had a dark spot between his eyebrow that looks vaguely like Vision's Infinity Stone on his forehead. Also, in episode 3, when Herb seems like he's about to tell Vision some important things, Agnes said stop it in a very similar tone to that used by Mrs. Hart when she was about to tell her husband to stop it when he was choking. That could very well be some crazy theory that I made just because I tend to overanalyze shows and TV and movies. Don't worry, mate. We do the exact same. Welcome to TV Podcast Industries. Welcome. The last thing Maeve wanted to say was, the last thing I would like to add is something that my sister noticed. It was the colour of the characters' clothes. The two main characters of the episode 3, other than Wanda, was Geraldine and Vision. Both wore cool tones with lots of blues, but the other characters wear very neutral tones. I think the blue is to contrast with Wanda's classic Scarlet theme, and the neutral tones are there to make the other actors blend into the background when they don't have a part in that episode. Thanks for listening, Maeve. No, Maeve, thank you so much for the feedback. Crazy theories, always good. Welcome.
Absolutely.
Please. That's what we want. I like the idea of the colours. That does make sense that they're there to kind of blend the background actors in with neutral tones, whereas you have Vision and Geraldine wearing those blues, which kind of offset the Scarlet of Scarlet Witch. Definitely interesting. Thank you so much for the feedback. John, do you want to take the next email?
Yeah, thanks so much, Maeve, for your feedback. Really good to get your input, and yeah, crazy theories are good. Onto some email feedback. We got Victor Sellers. He says, "Hey Derek and the lads. A few comments on episode 3 and 4. 1. Episode 3, where did they find a trained stork? 1A. Who trains the stork? Big budget. 2. Episode 4, loved the return of Kat Dennings from Thor with the CRT TV and rabbit ears antennae. 3. I enjoyed the answered questions, but what is Wanda's motivation for all this? Is she mental or a prisoner? Yeah, great catch, Victor. I think that is the thing that we are still trying to figure out, and will be great to see from some of the upcoming episodes. 4, loved the closing music. Jimi Hendrix was the perfect closing theme to this episode. Again, big budget. Hendrix's estate almost as strict as Elvis's estate. Looking forward to your podcast. Excelsior, Victor. Excelsior indeed, Victor. Yes, thanks so much for that feedback. Yeah, the budget here is really, really big.
Mm-hmm.
I think it is the most expensive TV show ever in the whole universe of TV shows.
Per episode.
Per episode.
Yes.
So, yeah,
Well,
really.
that would explain the CGI stork that we saw.
Yeah,
in
exactly
episode
as
3.
Victor mentioned here. Yeah. Who trains a stork?
Yeah. CGI computers trained this stork.
And I'm totally with you. I loved the return of Kat Dennings as well.
Yeah.
She is fab. I can't wait to see more Darcy in these shows.
Absolutely. But genuinely, as you say, Victor, the cost of getting Jimi Hendrix music into a TV show is massive. But also remember, we've had the Monkees, we've had Beach Boys, and now Jimi Hendrix. All three of those are apparently very difficult to get the rights to put into TV shows. So, yeah, they are spending their budget, no matter what. They're making this look like an actual movie, like an MCU movie, even though it's only 30-minute TV shows.
Yes, and the interesting part is a lot of the budget went on trying to find a CRTV. Because cathode ray tubes they don't just grow on trees anymore. They're mostly in dumps, so they had to build them from scratch.
They had to set up a whole industry of just building CRTs for the episodes. Excellent. Thanks so much, Victor. Our next piece of feedback comes in from 084, who says, "We wanted answers, we got them. The scene at the start with Monica unsnapping into complete chaos was everything I wanted and more. The episode could have been complete garbage after that, and I would still have called it a winner. But since it was decidedly not complete garbage, I'll keep talking. So many tidbits about the Rambeau family and its S.W.O.R.D origins, and I loved every second of it. I also loved how Darcy spent the last 10 years since we've seen her following in Jane's footsteps and becoming a doctor. My little continuity-loving heart has grown 3 sizes this day." I don't want to over-ramble, but something clear that stuck out to me is that Dottie and Agnes weren't identified by the task force in this episode. This definitely points to the Agatha and Mephisto theory for these two. Her being identified as a real person might unfortunately rule him out as being the high evolutionary. Cue sad trombone. There's so much more I want to gush about from this episode, but I'll cut it off there. So freaking excited. Until next time, 084. I'm so glad we're in territory now that isn't spoilers for future episodes, because nobody's seen future episodes. Even the trailers have nothing from the future episodes. I think there maybe is one photograph from the 80s that we've seen, but there's no real spoilers that anybody can point to about any of these characters. So all of these theories about Agatha Harkness from comic books, I hardly even know the character. I've seen her once in comic books. These theories about Mephisto being in the show, these are all theories based on what we've seen on the TV from the previous episode. So we can actually talk about them. And so glad you enjoyed the episode, 084. There was definitely some lovely continuity into the MCU that they pulled in here.
Yeah, thanks so much, 084. I am so Darcy inspired at this stage, so I really am with you there on how Darcy has become finally a doctor. Mm-hmm. And yeah, all the S.W.O.R.D stuff, that Origins is really good for me because, as I say, I only really know it as S.H.I.E.L.D. in space. So it's really good getting the information so that I can finally agree with Derek that it's not
S.H.I.E.L.D. in space. Exactly.
But I hope that the new acting director gets an eye patch soon.
He will not get an eye patch anytime soon.
We also got another email from Jerry, who had this to say. "Hey guys, it's Jerry again. I have some questions for you guys to think about. 1. Where is Vision's body the 5 years everyone has gone? I'm going to say the ground. 2. Who is missing person Jimmy Woo is looking for? We don't know. 3. Do you think Wanda is the big bad? No." Jerry went on to say, "Theories are abound for Mephisto. I do not think it's him. I think a lesser demon named Despair. He's a Doctor Strange villain. Guys, keep up the good." Jerry from Niceville, Florida. Jerry, thank you so much for that. As we were going along, as I said, where is Vision's body? In the ground. 2, who is Jimmy Woo looking for? We don't know.
Hang on. Let's just quickly say, I do not agree that Vision's body was ever put in the ground. There were members of the Avengers there after he died when everybody else disappeared.
Yeah.
In Avengers Infinity War, he was being worked on in Wakanda. That's where he died. So most likely he was taken back and put into Wakanda and see if maybe they could bring him back alive. Maybe that was what they were going to do. But unfortunately they did lose both Shuri and Black Panther in the snap, so neither of them able to work on him. But I think that's what happened. I don't know whether he was buried.
He could have been taken to PC World for the electronics recycling.
True.
Who knows? You know?
Everyone, we do care about the we. We do care about the we.
Exactly. Helping the environment.
He's sentient. You don't...
Well,
just throw him away.
No, that's true.
But
again,
you're not throwing away. You're recycling. You're making it better for planet Earth, Mother Earth.
Yeah, I mean, I guess with Vision, the some of the things that you know are connected with where he is at the moment is the fact that, you know, he did die. B, he was downloaded by Shuri to some extent, whatever that is. And 3, given the information I didn't know about that deleted scene, that this idea that Wanda, you know, kind of snuck into sort of a locked room to take his body. Yeah. You know, there's a lot of stuff there that can feed into what's happening now. So it's really, really interesting. Some nice stuff there, Jerry. And I agree that I don't think it's going to be a big bad here. in WandaVision. It may hint towards it for sure, but it's going to be an agent of a big bad that comes up. Whether that is Despair or whoever else, I think. It's certainly, that they're not going to flash that far ahead in this phase of MCU.
No. I personally, I just don't think we're there yet. I know we've had Dormammu. It's a step too far to bring the Mephisto elements and all that in just yet. I think it's just kind of, you need the Doctor Strange element in there to kind of bring in like, hey, there's magic and there's demons and all these other crazy things, because we've already been told that magic is just science they don't know yet. Like, that's what the explanation has been. Where you start going,
was Thor. That was Thor.
Okay, fine. But
it's energy that they manipulate and control, and that is magic, yeah.
So, I don't think Wanda is the big bad, but we will definitely see. Gentlemen, let's move on to the old blue book that is filled with faces. And yes, Facebook. We have a load of feedback over on the big blue Facebook. So first up, we have some feedback from Ronaldo. Yo ho ho. I guess this is what many viewers and fans have been waiting for. A reveal too much of the mystery surrounding the first 3 episodes. So, we definitely have S.W.O.R.D, Monica Rambeau, and at least some sort of confirmation that Wanda is behind it all. The world is indeed a trapped twin, and the residents are prisoners, mind wiped for some by the looks of the sheriff and his deputy. This still begs the question as to how the likes of Agnes seems conscious of her predicament while others don't. It makes me intrigued as to the character of Agnes, and I have to say, I'm leaning more towards the notion that she is indeed a version of Agatha Harkness, and somehow has an ability to counter Wanda's quote-unquote spells. It got me really excited to see Darcy, Jimmy Woo and Monica revealed. The tie alone to Captain Marvel movie has got me grinning from ear to ear. The explanations for the radio communications by Wu, the drone, and the beekeeper was good. It's great to tie them all up straight away so we can keep going ahead and progress with the story. The questions I'm left with now after episode 4 are Wanda powers. They certainly have developed since we last saw them. Sure, she is a powerful telekinetic, but how is she controlling the minds of the population? I still think there's more to it than meets the eye. And Hydra will show up their ugly head soon enough. Also, Vision visibly looked uneasy behind Wanda's back, so he too is conscious of the calamity Wanda is causing, but just who is he? Is he Vision or a Skrull? Wouldn't it tie nicely in with Secret Invasion of the Skrulls as seen in Captain Marvel?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, although my partner was the most confused with this episode, I'd have to defend this hands down. Enjoyment factor was 10 out of 10, and although we kind of ended where episode 3 ended, we got a lot more insight into what really is happening. It just makes me peachy keen for the episodes ahead.
Excellent, Ronaldo. Really, really good points there. It's an interesting point that Ray makes there about his partner finding this one the most confusing of all the episodes, because as we mentioned earlier on, for this episode, if you've watched the 7 movies that it's referencing in here, this is the one that gives you all the answers. If you haven't watched those movies, I wonder, does it feel like, hang on, who are all these people? What are their specialities? Why are they here? Why are they involved? Does it give you loads more questions if you've never seen any of those movies? I just wonder, what's that thing at the start of someone reforming out of the air? Does Monica actually exist? I wonder whether it's really confusing to people. But I suppose, Avengers Endgame, the movie that made more money than any other movie made in the history of man, does mean that most people understand what's going on here, I suppose. So it's really interesting points there, Ray. And I loved how much Catherine Hahn's character has captured everybody's attention. She doesn't even appear in this episode. It's only in flashback, really, in this episode, and she still captures people's attention.
Yeah, thanks so much, Ronaldo. And yeah, I'm really enjoying the Skrull theory here, and that tie into Secret Invasion. So yeah, that would be a nice thing for Vision. As I say, maybe it is also the missing person that Wanda has kind of put the form of Vision around him.
Maybe.
If it's just not Vision at all. But great stuff. Thanks for the feedback, Ronaldo. On Facebook, Heather Wallace says, So there I was, expecting a retro 80s comedy intro into the vein of Family Ties and Growing Pains, but instead I had my heart ripped out by the snap reversal and its aftermath. Well played, WandaVision. Well played. That first glimpse of Monica in sitcom Westview means there are more episodes than what we've seen. And by scouring for clues in the sitcom, are we all turning into S.W.O.R.D agents? Yeah, thanks so much there, Heather. Yeah, I loved the unblipping, the unsnapping, for sure. It just really was a great thing to see and see it done in the way that it was. I guess it would have warmed the cockles of Captain America's heart. As we know from Endgame, he was really quite moany, not knowing what to do with himself, really wallowing in his grief to the
Very
extent
depressed.
that, none of the rubbish was collected, after 5 years.
I don't think that's Captain America's responsibility, but thanks so much for the feedback, Heather. Alan Thomas says, that was awesome. As I predicted, mostly in jest, I do need a Spinal Tap scale because that episode was 6 out of 5. One of my favorite things about this episode actually is showing the aftermath of the undoing of what they are calling the blip. The implications of that, which were also touched on in the Spider-Man movie, are so rich with story potential. Tony Stark imagined it as being all upside with no downside, like specifically he did not want his own daughter erased, but that of course is impossible. I do like that the seriousness of Monica arriving back. She had been sitting beside Maria Rambeau's bed. After she came back from surgery, she arrives back 5 years later and her mother's passed away 3 years, even though in Monica's mind, only a second has passed and her mother was coming out of surgery and everything had gone really well. So yeah, you're absolutely right. That's a really good call out, Alan. Thanks for that. Matthew Randall says, Jimmy Woo and Darcy are probably two of my favourite supporting characters in the whole MCU, and I loved seeing them together. Not needing any prior knowledge of them, but it being extra cool if you do recognise them, is quintessentially MCU. Same with Monica Rambeau, although I hope we get a bit more Carol Danvers, Maria Rambeau flashbacks somewhere along the line. Maybe in Captain Marvel 2? Can't wait to listen to the podcast. I haven't convinced my flatmates to watch it yet, but this episode certainly remotivated me. Matthew.
Thanks, Matthew. Yep, as we said, Jimmy Woo and Darcy are some of our favourites too, and I do like the idea of the Carol Danvers, Marie Rambeau flashbacks, because my assumption is Captain Marvel is not a flashback; it's a kind of present day, and it's going to be with Monica. But let's wait and see.
Captain Marvel 2, yeah, I think it's probably going to be more present day, isn't it? After Endgame, yeah.
Yes. We also got some feedback from Alex Balish, who had this to say, well, that's a twist I didn't see coming. I'm glad they revealed what the heck is going on. Loved all the new characters. Randall Parker's Jimmy Woo is hilarious and also plays a great straight man in comedy, as well as Kat Dennings. Can't wait to hear your thoughts. Well, there you go, Alex. You've heard our thoughts. Welcome.
Thanks so much, Alex.
Yeah, thanks so much, Alex. Richard Blaze says, well, I couldn't have been more wrong. I expected them to drag the mystery on until the penultimate episode and then have it nicely wrapped up in the finale. This made a refreshing change and was great to see how it all ties into the MCU. Easily the best episode yet, and much more grounded with subtle humour thrown in. A brave decision. My only grumble was it felt like it flew by. Even when the credits rolled, I checked how long was left and it said 6 minutes. So I sat and continued to watch the credits in multiple languages. In my defense, as it ended, it did say, please stand by. I just took that too literally. Interested to see how next week's episode plays out. Will we be back to Wanda and Vision with snippets of S.W.O.R.D, or will we just focus on the sitcom? My son, Alfie's verdict, amazing, said in very breathless fashion as he couldn't quite believe what he had just seen. Thanks so much, Richard and Alfie. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, this is absolutely a great episode. Yeah. It really, it reveals everything. It brings everything together from those first three with the sitcoms. I think, moving forward for me, I'm hoping it doesn't just go back to a straight, now we see them in an 80s sitcom, without any reference to what's going on at this big, S.W.O.R.D encampment outside. Yep. That needs to now just be married in for me, at this stage. So yeah, agree with you, Alfie. Absolutely amazing TV. So yeah, thanks so much, Richard and Alfie, for your feedback.
Sometimes being an MCU fan does backfire. You know, remember all that stuff that used to come out before the movies where they're saying, you know, a real Marvel fan sits through the end of the credits and then they have 7-minute credits at the end of their episodes of TV. It doesn't even go on to anything else like on Netflix. It just plays through all 7 minutes of the credits with no credit scenes. Excellent. Thanks so much for that, Richard. Stevie Lannerson says, since it seems that Wanda's creating her own mini-universe, I think all the people in the town aren't exactly being controlled by Wanda, but are simply existing within the strange rules of her sitcom universe, because that is how things work. They're still aware of who they were and how things used to be, but they rarely act on that knowledge or say anything to her, because that's simply not how things work there in this universe. But also, if something happens that Wanda doesn't like, she does have the ability to directly alter it to fit her desires. That's really interesting. Yeah, that's the point we were making about, you know, the things like the drone appearing and it turns into the helicopter, the S.W.O.R.D agent that comes in and is turning into the beekeeper outfit, the point you were making earlier on in the season. If it doesn't fit the narrative of this sitcom, it just translates into something else. Isn't that right, Chris? Yeah,
I think that's kind of where we're going to end up with this. We also got some feedback from Sandra Resendez, who said, did you notice they never put Agnes up on the board when they were saying the characters' real names? I really have no words for this episode other than holy beep, 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 swear jar, swear jar, swear jar.
There's a lot of dinks that need to go in this from
Luke Cage.
Luke Cage, absolutely.
Sandra also said, so if the old jump rope was able to come back to reality, could other things theoretically come back, i.e. Vision and or the twins? Yes, I think that's what John was kind of questioning. Potentially this is the ability that, although Wanda does not know, maybe things can cross back over.
Absolutely, yeah. It's entirely possible that that Vision could walk out of this series alive again. That's a really good point, Sandra. Thanks so much for that. Claire Payne says, it's all Wanda. This was an extremely clever episode. I don't really know where to start. I just finished watching the 4 Avengers films, and ironically, this episode fitted in extremely well. Seeing the blip reversed and the chaos that is caused in just one hospital was a great way to open this episode. So good to see Darcy Lewis. Really liked her in the 2 Thor films. WandaVision is brilliant.
Thanks so much, Claire. Yes, I think the blip is great, and I think anyone who's watching WandaVision, if you have time, seeing the Avenger films again is just a really nice way to connect back to those films for this series. And if you haven't got the time, there is the sort of overview of
the
at
Legends.
least Wanda, the Legends on Disney Plus, for Wanda and Vision at least. Jeff Childs says, the unsnap looked really cool. Wanda looks like she might be the big bad, even if unintentionally. We got a glimpse of a dead Vision. This is how she's dealing with the trauma. Yes, I think that there's a lot of stuff here still a mystery, and one of those is the effect that Wanda is having for sure on this world, and to what extent she is in control. But certainly Monica believes she is in control. It's all Wanda. Thanks so much, Jeff.
Yes, thank you, Jeff. The second last piece of feedback comes from Ray Felix, who said, my God, that was good. I actually think this is before Thanos' final battle. Will the last episode be Wanda fighting Thanos screaming, you took everything from me? I also think it's good intro to the real Captain Marvel of the Avengers. So, not to be nitpicky, technically she's the second Captain Marvel. For any of our listeners who are not fans of comic books, Monica Rambeau used to be, one of her aliases in the comic book was Captain Marvel. Essentially, you had the first Captain Marvel, which was a Kree, Marvel, Captain Marvel. He was male, he used negabands, and that's a whole other thing. Then you had Monica Rambeau, who took on the moniker of Captain Marvel, based on the Thing from the Fantastic Four, told her to take it because Captain Marvel would not care.
Right.
Sure. The Thing makes the joke in the comics that he's pretty sure he's not the only thing in that universe. So very funny. But then later on she goes on like Spectrum, Photon. She uses many, I think she's currently called Spectrum, in it, in the actual comic book universe. But then Carol Danvers took on Miss Marvel and then became Captain Marvel.
That's
and
right.
now we have Kamala Khan as Miss Marvel. So, names do things. So, technically, she's the second.
She's a Captain Marvel.
She's
Definitely.
a Captain Marvel.
I think it's likely in this universe, given that we saw that photo of her mother with the name Proton on it, Maria Proton Rambeau. I think it's likely in this universe, if she's going to become some form of superhero, that she would take on the mantle of Proton. But here we don't see her with any kind of superpowers at all. She is an investigator who works for S.W.O.R.D. But really good feedback there, Ray, as well. That'd be really interesting if she effectively came back from the snap in this blip, effectively, if Wanda came back and immediately went, and this was the universe that she created for Vision, and then she went off afterwards and fought Thanos. That would be really interesting, wouldn't it? Final piece of feedback over on Facebook from Doug Greed. He says, okay, I need to know the truth from Derek, John and Chris. Do you have a whiteboard set up that looks like Jimmy Woo's board?
I'm sorry, Doug. It's actually not a whiteboard. If any of you have seen It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, it's actually more like Charlie Day's board, where it's the whole room is full of pieces of string and news clippings all connected together with tacks.
You know, it's mad, isn't it? I don't think I've ever seen an episode or more than one episode of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, but that is the GIF that always comes up when you're confused. That's the GIF that suddenly appears. Is Charlie Day from Always Sunny putting together those plans or that analysis of something he doesn't understand. Excellent. Thanks so much for that, Doug.
Yeah, thanks so much, Doug and Ray, and for all the feedback through on Facebook.
Yes, thank you so much, everyone. And now, gentlemen, it's time. We have a voicemail.
Yes, a voicemail from the one and only Steve Brown.
Hey guys, it's Steve. Such a good episode. Another one. We interrupt this program. Love that we're finally getting titles. I think we've already said that, but a lot in this episode. See if I can hit just a couple of things that I found interesting. Loved that Jimi Hendrix at the end. I believe that was Jimi Hendrix, Voodoo Child. And also, I noticed that Paul Bettany got top billing this time. I think, unless I'm wrong, Elizabeth Olsen's been getting top billing on the previous episodes when they went to the credits. So that was interesting. Seeing the people's reactions after people came back from the blip was great. I don't think we've really gotten a good example of that in any of the movies. So that was really cool seeing Monica come back and asking about her mom, thinking that she'd only been asleep for 20 minutes, but she's actually been gone for years. So that was really good, and just loved moving the story forward and seeing outside of this bubble and kind of learning there's definitely something deeper going on than just Wanda. So, can't wait to hear you guys and can't wait to talk about this one and watch it again. All right. Talk to you later.
Thanks so much, Steve. That's some really good points there. Yeah, I don't think we've ever seen the serious return from the blip like we saw in this episode. We mentioned earlier on that in Spider-Man Far From Home, we had a few kind of comedy scenes of people returning. I think the one that always stands out to me is the basketball team who were playing on the court, and suddenly the marching band walks straight through the middle of the basketball court because they had been marching there 5 years before. And I thought that was a great funny scene. But here, this episode, much more played, since it's in a hospital, much more played seriously. Yeah.
Yep. Thanks, Steve, for the feedback. Yeah, I wonder how they determine billing. Maybe it's just contracts between the characters, or whether there's some significance for the show. Yeah. Never know. But certainly, the blip thing was just amazing. Yes, and Voodoo Child from Jimi Hendrix, really, really good to, I guess, talk about Wanda.
I have to be the pedantic music person and call it Voodoo Child, John. No, child.
Sorry. Okay.
There's no D on the end.
Light Shield.
Common misconception. Yep.
Wow.
That's why you've never been able to find it on Spotify, Chris.
Pretty much. Also, I wouldn't go looking for it. No offense.
Awesome tune.
Oh my god.
Shocker, so but gentlemen, that is the end of our episode on that bombshell that Chris does not like Jimi Hendrix.
Johnny Hendricks?
I said Johnny Hendricks.
I don't like Johnny Hendricks.
That's
Johnny
probably
Hendricks is
why
terrible.
I don't like Jimi Hendrix. I've always thought his name was Johnny Hendricks, and I was just finding him terrible, like kind of a really bad cover band.
Yeah, that's probably the reason, Chris. Thanks again, everybody, for your feedback. Just again to mention that that puts you all in with the chance of winning those WandaVision Funko Pops at the end of the season. Thanks so much, as always, for joining us for our discussions about WandaVision Episode 4. If you want to get in contact with us, always you can email us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com or join us over in our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/TV Podcast Industries.
Yes, it's always good. Don't forget as well, you can support us by going on over to patreon.com/TV Podcast Industries and keeping the producer extraordinaire in caffeine as he edits into the wee hours of every night.
Even with one episode a week, I'm editing every night.
Yes.
Yes.
You're really bad at your job.
And of course, you can support us through subscribing at tvpodcastindustries.com on any Wiccan or Wizardy podcast catcher of your choice. We will be back next week for WandaVision Episode 5, which will be on Disney Plus from Friday, the 5th of February.
Thanks so much for joining us.
Yes, thank you so much, and we'll see you next Friday. Marvel Fridays! Woo!
Yes, thanks so much, fellow Defenders, for joining us. It's a pleasure, as always. Remember, keep watching, keep listening, and keep defending. Meow meow.
Bye.
Meow meow.
Bye.
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 So you're saying the universe created a sitcom starring two Avengers?
It's a working theory.